The funeral parlor smelled of lilies and old grief, a combination that had haunted me since childhood visits to pay respects to distant relatives I barely knew. Today was different. Today we were saying goodbye to the one person who had ever truly understood me. My mother, Eleanor Hartwell, lay in the mahogany casket she would have hated for its extravagance, surrounded by flowers from people who had spent years telling her she was wasting her time on her youngest son. I stood in the back corner wearing my only decent black suit, the one I'd bought 3 years ago for job interviews that never led anywhere according to my family's version of my story. My Uncle Richard held court near the front, his perfectly tailored Armani suit and gold watch catching the light as he gestured dramatically to the gathered relatives. His wife Patricia stood beside him, dripping in diamonds that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Such a tragedy," Patricia was saying to anyone within earshot. "Eleanor worked so hard to build the family business and now—" She glanced meaningfully in my direction. "Well, let's hope the estate goes to someone who can handle the responsibility." My cousin Bradley nodded sagely from his position near the guest book. At 35 he'd never worked a day in his life, living off the trust fund his grandfather had set up. But in the family's eyes he was the success story. The one with the right connections, the right wife, the right address in the gated community. "David's here," I heard someone whisper. That was me. David Hartwell, the family disappointment. The college dropout who worked at Murphy's gas station on Highway 9. The one who'd chosen to move into a studio apartment above the mechanic's shop instead of pursuing a real career in finance like Uncle Richard had planned for me. If only they knew. I checked my phone discreetly. A text from Marcus, my attorney. "Documentation ready. Estate transfer complete. Sorry for your loss. Call when you're ready to proceed." Another from Janet, my chief financial officer. "Quarterly reports show 23% growth. The board sends condolences. Take all the time you need." And one from Mom's doctor. "Your mother was proud of you, David. She made sure I knew that before she passed. The secret dies with her as promised." I slipped the phone back into my pocket and walked toward the front of the room. Time to pay my respects before the vultures began circling in earnest. "David," Uncle Richard's voice boomed across the funeral parlor. "There you are. We were wondering if you'd show up." I approached the casket, ignoring his comment. Mom looked peaceful, her silver hair perfectly arranged, wearing the pearl necklace she'd inherited from her own mother. The same necklace Uncle Richard had tried to claim 6 months ago, insisting it was too valuable for someone in my position to safeguard. "She looks beautiful," I said quietly. "Yes, well," Patricia sniffed. "We made sure she had the best. Unlike some people, we understand the importance of maintaining dignity." I bit back my response. They'd chosen the most expensive funeral package available, charging it to Mom's estate account. The same account they'd been eyeing for months, making increasingly obvious hints about how the family assets should be properly managed after her passing. "David," Bradley approached with his usual condescending smile. "Good to see you cleaned up for the occasion. How's the gas station treating you?" "Can't complain," I replied. "Steady work, honest pay." Uncle Richard snorted. "Honest pay? Your mother could have gotten you a position at Hartwell Industries. Real money, real responsibility. Instead." He gestured vaguely at my suit. Hartwell Industries. The family construction company that had been circling the drain for 3 years. I'd been watching their quarterly reports with interest, particularly their debt-to-equity ratio and the series of failed projects that had left them leveraged beyond recovery. Uncle Richard had been borrowing against everything, including the family estate, to keep the business afloat. "Some people are built for greatness," Patricia added sweetly. "Others are more suited to service positions." The funeral service proceeded with the usual rituals. A pastor who'd never met my mother read from prepared notes about her dedication to family and business acumen. Uncle Richard gave a eulogy that focused more on his own achievements than Mom's life. Bradley's wife sobbed dramatically, though she'd spoken to my mother maybe 5 times in the past decade. I said nothing, just sat in the back row, remembering the woman who'd spent her last 3 years secretly working with me to build something extraordinary while everyone else dismissed me as the family failure. After the service, as people lingered over coffee and dry sandwiches, Uncle Richard called for attention. "Before we all head to the cemetery," he announced, I think it's appropriate to address Eleanor's final wishes regarding the estate. Here it comes. I settled back in my folding chair watching the performance. As her eldest surviving relative and executor of the will, Uncle Richard continued, I've reviewed the documentation with our attorneys. The Hartwell family estate, including the house, the business assets, and associated properties, will be distributed among the responsible family members. Patricia nodded approvingly. Bradley straightened his tie. Now, we all know Eleanor had a soft spot for David. Uncle Richard's eyes found me across the room. But the estate must go to those capable of preserving the family legacy. We can't have assets squandered on. He paused dramatically. Well, let's just say not everyone is equipped to handle such responsibility. Several relatives murmured agreement. I caught snippets. Always knew David wouldn't amount to much, and Eleanor was too generous with that boy, and gas station attendant, honestly. So, Uncle Richard pulled out a leather portfolio. The estate goes to responsible family members. Not dropouts who work at gas stations. The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of the funeral parlor's air conditioning. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my reaction to being publicly disinherited at my own mother's funeral. I stood up slowly, reaching into my jacket pocket. That's interesting, Uncle Richard, I said quietly, pulling out my own leather portfolio. Because I have some documents here that tell a different story. His confident smile flickered slightly. David, please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. Your mother's wishes were very clear. Yes, I agreed, opening my portfolio. They were very clear. Shall I read them? I pulled out the notarized documents, the real ones, and began reading in a clear voice that carried across the suddenly silent room. I, Eleanor Marie Hartwell, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, including all real property, business assets, investments, and personal effects, to my son David Michael Hartwell. The silence was deafening. Furthermore, I continued, I designate David as the sole beneficiary of all trusts, accounts, and holdings previously unknown to other family members, including but not limited to the controlling interest in Meridian Holdings LLC, the parent company of 17 subsidiary businesses across 3 states. Uncle Richard's face had gone white. That's impossible. I'm the executor. I have the will. You have a will, I corrected, still reading. The preliminary document Mom's lawyers prepared to keep you from interfering while she finalized her actual wishes. This is the real will, signed and witnessed just 2 weeks before her death. I looked up at their stunned faces. Oh, and Uncle Richard? About that mortgage on your house in Brookfield Estates? The one you've been struggling to pay since Hartwell Industries started failing? Mom bought that note 6 months ago. Technically, I now own your house. The color drained from Patricia's face. Bradley's mouth hung open like he was catching flies. But how? Patricia whispered. Eleanor worked at the flower shop. She had no money for investments. I smiled, the same quiet smile Mom had taught me years ago. Mom didn't work at a flower shop, Patricia. She owned 17 of them, along with the property management company that controls most of downtown's commercial real estate, and the construction firm that's been underbidding Hartwell Industries on every major project for the past 3 years. Uncle Richard collapsed into the nearest chair. Meridian Holdings, that's been you? That's been us, I corrected. Mom and me. While you all thought I was wasting my life pumping gas, I was actually getting my MBA online and helping Mom build an empire. The gas station job? That was our first acquisition. We bought Murphy's Gas 2 years ago, along with the entire block it sits on. I pulled out my phone, opening the portfolio app I'd developed for tracking our holdings. Would you like to see the current valuation of Mom's estate? The estate that now belongs to me. The number that appeared on my screen made several people gasp audibly. $47.3 million in liquid assets. $126.8 million in real estate holdings. $89.2 million in business valuations. $250 million, I said softly. Built quietly, carefully, while everyone was busy looking down on the family disappointment. Bradley found his voice first. But you work at a gas station. You live in that tiny apartment. I work at a gas station I own, I corrected. And I live in a small apartment because I was saving money to help Mom expand our investments. Funny how frugal living looks like poverty to people who spend money they don't have. I turned to Uncle Richard, who was staring at the documents like they might disappear if he looked hard enough. Speaking of money you don't have, I continued, Hartwell Industries owes approximately $2.8 million to various creditors. Mom's been keeping track of your debts, Uncle Richard. Very carefully. I pulled out another document. This is a notice of default on your corporate loans. Payment was due yesterday. As of this morning, Meridian Holdings has purchased all of Hartwell Industries' debt from your creditors. The implications sank in slowly. Uncle Richard's business, his house, his entire financial life was now under my control. You can't do this, he whispered. We're family. Family, I repeated thoughtfully. Like when you convinced Mom to invest her savings in your construction project 15 years ago. The one that failed and cost her everything she'd saved for retirement. Patricia's hand flew to her throat. They'd never known I knew about that. Or like when you told everyone at Christmas 3 years ago that I was mentally unstable and shouldn't be trusted with responsibility? I continued. That was rich, coming from someone who'd just gambled away $50,000 in Atlantic City and hidden the loss from his wife. Bradley backed toward the door. His own financial situation wasn't much better, and he knew I had the resources to discover exactly how bad it was. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice still calm and measured. Uncle Richard, you have 30 days to present a restructuring plan for Hartwell Industries. A real plan with actual accountability and oversight. If you can prove you're capable of running a legitimate business, I'll consider keeping you on as a managed employee. A managed employee? Patricia sputtered. Richard built that company. Richard inherited that company, I corrected, and drove it into the ground through poor management and personal greed. Mom spent 3 years documenting every questionable decision, every financial irregularity, every shortcut that put workers at risk to save money. I opened another folder. Speaking of irregularities, Patricia, we should discuss your involvement in the invoice padding scheme. Yes, I know about that too. Mom's forensic accountant was very thorough. The funeral parlor had emptied except for immediate family. Even the funeral director had retreated, sensing the shift in power dynamics. As for the family house, I continued, Bradley, you and your wife have been living there rent-free for 2 years. Market rate for a property that size is $4,500 per month. You owe $108,000 in back rent, plus utilities and maintenance costs. Bradley's wife started crying. Real tears this time. But I'm not unreasonable, I said. Family is family, as you keep reminding me. So here's my offer. Bradley, there's a position open at Meridian's property management division. Entry-level but honest work with opportunities for advancement based on merit, not birthright. I turned to Uncle Richard. And you can keep your house, Uncle Richard. I'll sell the mortgage back to you at cost with reasonable payment terms. All you have to do is admit that maybe, just maybe, you misjudged the family dropout. The silence stretched for a long moment. Finally, Uncle Richard cleared his throat. David, he said quietly, we had no idea. No, I agreed. You had no idea. You were too busy looking down on me to notice what I was actually accomplishing. Too convinced of your own superiority to see that maybe the gas station attendant understood business better than the man who inherited a profitable company and ran it into debt. I gathered my documents, slipping them back into my portfolio. Mom's funeral is in an hour, I said. I suggest we all take some time to think about how we want to remember her. As the woman who quietly built an empire while her family dismissed her son, or as the mother who taught that same son everything he needed to know about real success. I headed toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Uncle Richard, that Rolex you're wearing? The one you bought with company funds last month? Consider it a gift. You'll need to start liquidating personal assets soon anyway. As I walked out into the afternoon sunlight, I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from potential business partners who'd read about Mom's passing in the business journal. Word traveled fast in investment circles when a major portfolio changed hands. I called Marcus first. David, he answered immediately. How did it go? About as expected, I said, climbing into my practical Toyota Camry. They took it about as well as you'd imagine. And the family business? They'll come around. Uncle Richard's pride is bruised, but he's not stupid. He knows I hold all the cards now. What about the personal relationships? I thought about that as I drove toward the cemetery. Mom always said that real family supports each other's dreams, even when they don't understand them. The rest is just genetics and legal obligations. The cemetery was peaceful, rolling hills dotted with old oak trees. Mom's grave was toward the back, overlooking the valley where she'd grown up. I parked and walked over, carrying the flowers I'd brought from her favorite garden center. Not the expensive arrangements from the funeral, just simple daisies she'd always loved. "Well, Mom," I said quietly, placing the flowers on the fresh grave. "The secret's out. Uncle Richard knows about Meridian Holdings. Patricia knows about the real estate portfolio. Bradley knows about his back rent." The wind rustled through the oak leaves overhead. "You were right about keeping quiet until after the funeral. They needed to show their true colors one more time. Now everyone knows exactly where they stand." I sat on the small bench nearby, looking out over the valley. I wish you could have seen Uncle Richard's face when I mentioned his mortgage. Patricia almost fainted when I brought up the invoice padding. And Bradley, poor Bradley, looked like he was going to be sick. A car pulled up behind mine. Uncle Richard's Lincoln Continental. He got out slowly, looking older than he had an hour ago, and walked over to where I sat. "David," he said quietly. "Hey, I gestured to the other end of the bench. He sat down heavily, staring at Mom's grave. "She was always smarter than the rest of us," he said finally. "Even as kids, Eleanor could see things we missed. I should have known she wouldn't just leave you with nothing." "She didn't leave me with nothing, Uncle Richard. She left me with everything I needed to succeed. Knowledge, connections, and most importantly, the understanding that real wealth comes from building something valuable, not inheriting something valuable." He nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about what you said. About the 30-day restructuring plan. And I want to try. Not because I have to, but because maybe it's time I learned how to actually run a business instead of just owning one." I looked at him carefully. "It won't be easy. No more expense account lunches or company cars for personal use. No more hiring your golf buddies for positions they're not qualified for. Everything will be transparent, accountable, measurable." "I understand." He paused. "David, can I ask you something? How long have you known? About Mom's empire, I mean." 3 years, I said. "Since I graduated with my MBA. Mom approached me with a proposition. She had some money saved up in a business plan. She needed someone she could trust to help her execute it. Why didn't you tell us?" I turned to face him fully. "Because every time I tried to suggest improvements to Hartwell Industries, you shut me down. Every time I offered to help with the books or the project management, you reminded me that I was just the college dropout. Why would I share a business opportunity with people who made it clear they thought I was incapable of success?" Uncle Richard flinched. "We were protecting the family reputation." "No," I said firmly. "You were protecting your own egos. There's a difference." We sat in silence for a while, watching the sunset paint the valley in shades of gold and crimson. Finally, Uncle Richard spoke again. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, standing up, "we honor Mom's memory by building something she'd be proud of. A family business that actually serves the family, not just the people who inherited positions they didn't earn." I started walking back toward my car, then turned back. "Uncle Richard, the restructuring plan isn't just about Hartwell Industries. It's about us. All of us. Mom didn't just leave me money. She left me the responsibility to take care of the family, even the parts of the family that didn't think I was worth taking care of. And you're willing to do that? After everything we put you through?" I smiled, the same quiet smile Mom had taught me. "That's what real family does, Uncle Richard. We take care of each other, especially when we don't deserve it." As I drove away from the cemetery, my phone buzzed with a text from Bradley. "David, about that property management position. Could we talk tomorrow?" Then one from Patricia. "I need to come clean about some things. When would be a good time?" And finally one from Uncle Richard. "Thank you for giving us a chance to do better. Eleanor would be proud." I pulled over and typed back. She already was proud. That's why she trusted me with everything. Now let's make sure we deserve that trust. The funeral had ended. The inheritance was settled. But the real work of rebuilding our family was just beginning. Mom had always said that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's turning them into allies. As I drove toward my small apartment above the gas station I owned, I realized she'd given me something more valuable than money. She'd given me the opportunity to prove that success isn't about where you start or what people expect from you. It's about what you build when no one thinks you're capable of building anything at all. And tomorrow we'd start building something new together. Something that would make Eleanor Hartwell's legacy proud. 6 months later, I stood in the conference room of the newly renovated Hartwell Industries headquarters, looking out at the team that had assembled for our quarterly review. Uncle Richard sat at the table, his sleeves rolled up, reviewing construction schedules with the dedication of someone who'd finally learned the difference between owning a business and running one. Bradley had proven surprisingly capable in property management, bringing the same attention to detail he'd once devoted to avoiding responsibility to his new role as facility coordinator. Patricia worked part-time in our accounting department, having finally found a legal outlet for her talent with numbers. Quarterly profits are up 34%, Janet reported. The new safety protocols have eliminated workplace accidents, and customer satisfaction ratings are the highest they've been in 5 years. Uncle Richard looked up from his schedules. David, I have to admit, I never thought I'd see these numbers again. Your mother's operational improvements have saved the company. Our operational improvements, I corrected. This isn't about what Mom and I built in secret. This is about what we're all building together now. As the meeting wrapped up, I walked back to my office. Not the small space behind the gas station where I'd started, but the corner office that had once belonged to Uncle Richard. He'd insisted on the move, saying that the person who'd actually saved the company deserved the office with the best view. On my desk sat a framed photo from Mom's last birthday, 6 months before she passed. We were standing in front of the gas station, both wearing Murphy's uniform shirts, grinning at some joke she'd just told. To anyone else, it probably looked like a proud mother posing with her working-class son. But I knew the truth. It was a picture of 2 business partners celebrating the purchase of their 17th property, taken on the day we'd officially become millionaires. Mom had taught me that the best power is invisible power. The best success is success that nobody sees coming until it's too late to stop it. And the best family is the one you build after the one you inherited shows you who they really are. My phone buzzed. A text from Bradley. David, got 3 new lease applications for the downtown properties. All good candidates. Thanks for believing in me. Then one from Uncle Richard. Board meeting went great. The Johnson contract is signed. Couldn't have done it without your guidance. And finally one from Patricia. Quarterly taxes filed. Everything's clean and transparent just like you wanted. Eleanor would be proud of all of us. I looked out the window at the city where my mother had quietly built an empire while everyone dismissed her son as a failure. The same city where that son had learned that the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's proving yourself right in ways that lift everyone up. The gas station was still running, now managed by a young entrepreneur I'd hired and mentored. Murphy's had become the first in a chain of service stations that provided fair wages and educational opportunities for employees. Mom's flower shops were thriving under new management, each one a small community hub that brought beauty and employment to neighborhoods that needed both. And Hartwell Industries was building again. Not just profitable construction projects but affordable housing, community centers, and infrastructure that actually served the people who lived here. I picked up the photo of Mom and me, remembering what she told me that day. David, she'd said, real success isn't about what you take from people who underestimated you. It's about what you give to people who believed in you even when you couldn't believe in yourself. The family that had gathered at her funeral to divide up her estate had become the family that gathered every Sunday for dinner, sharing stories and planning the future we were building together. And sometimes, late at night when I was reviewing quarterly reports or planning new acquisitions, I could hear Mom's voice reminding me that the best inheritance isn't money. It's the knowledge that you're capable of building something extraordinary, even when everyone else thinks you're just pumping gas and dreaming too big. The empire was ours now. All of ours. And we were just getting started.